You got to keep in mind, man, Vince was interviewed before the allegations, and he said some things I bet he probably regrets and would have never said after the allegations, talking about his sexual prowess and his sexual appetite and, stuff like that. So, if anybody implicated Vince McMahon, it was Vince McMahon.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here for another episode of the Riding with Russo with the man himself, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Vince Russo.
What's up, Doctor? What's going on, my friend?
Man, listen, just another day in paradise, my brother. What's your favorite pro wrestling theme song of all time?
DX.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you have a hand in creating that at all, or just completely Jim Johnston?
I did not. Well, I know Shane, man. Shane had a hand in that a little bit, but I did not. I did not.
Nice. Great segue to, speaking of DX, great segue to the Vince McMahon documentary. And did you watch all 6 yet, or are you still watching?
Watched all 6.
All right, what do you think, man?
I think there was nothing new to see here. It was uneventful. I feel that they 100% produced this right down the middle. I don't think they tried to put any narrative on it. I don't think they had an agenda. I think if anybody implicated themselves, it was Vince by some of the things that he said. And I thought it was very, very, to point, factual. I don't think they smeared his name in any way. Even when they covered the allegations in like the last 30 minutes of the show, bro, they just presented facts. Vince said some things, and you got to keep in mind, man, Vince was interviewed before the allegations, and he said some things I bet he probably regrets and would have never said after the allegations, talking about his sexual prowess and his sexual appetite and, stuff like that. So, if anybody implicated Vince McMahon, it was Vince McMahon, because I think the creators, the director, the producer, I think they were very, very, very fair to Vince in this presentation.
Yeah. It's interesting, man, because there's a couple of things that stood out for me. And when the first episode specifically, it just makes me, and I think they were talking about in the 5th episode as far as his childhood and things like that. And the only thing that we know about his childhood is what Vince McMahon tells us. The Playboy interview from 2001, they referenced that too. And it just makes me see. And I knew, and I agree with you. It wasn't nothing new. There wasn't any type of new information. But I do like the fact that they were digging a little bit more into Vince McMahon's upbringing, the first episode. And it just was like, man, you know what? I sympathize with Vince in many ways. Like, not from a standpoint of just, justifying or approving or bypassing anything that he's allegedly done, but the why behind the what, the motive behind it. It's just, man, he's just an abandoned soul, and he was able to use the abuse that, and I'm throwing this out there clinically. It just seems like he was able to use the abuse that he had as a child to gain a sense of power and control over others by any means necessary. And that's Machiavellianism. It's part of the dark triad of psychology. And so it's important to understand that from just a clinical and a psychological standpoint.
You think you know all the wrestling stories? There's more you haven't heard yet. Join us on Backstage Pass.
Man, I saw that episode. I was like, man, this is just another case. I mean, Vince McMahon to me is no different than any client that I would see on a daily basis that dealt with childhood trauma, that now deals with narcissistic tendencies or psychopathic tendencies or Machiavellian tendencies. He's no different than that. You know, he just decided. A lot of times people deal with that Machiavellian mindset. Having that business swell up the more that it does, that becomes like your meal ticket to power. And they were even talking about that within the episode. Like, this is his world, everything that he's went through, you know, as a child, he has the ability to have it in this bubble of the WWE, and he's the power man. He's control. He's the Lord of all this. And you can just tell with just the way that he ran the company in many ways. It was just business to him. It was just like, I don't care if I, you know, abusive to, I don't care if I kiss my daughter. I don't care if I, you know, have an affair with my wife. I don't care about any of that. So it makes me wonder, Vince, from your standpoint of being there, the ability to have his business be such a, and one other thing before I ask you this question, it also seemed as if he was trying to prove himself, probably even to this day, to his father, because he was abandoned for so long, you know, growing up. And he said something really interesting. He said him and his father never had that conversation as far as why he left. And when I saw that, I'm like, ooh, when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, so that's someone who still wants to prove himself and his love and affection toward his father because he felt abandoned. Now, how did he do that? He did that with the Machiavellian mindset, but it just seems like he still was trying to prove himself to his father.
Bro, that's funny because that's an ongoing theme in wrestling. You know, Vince McMahon wanting to prove himself to his father. Shane McMahon wanting to prove himself to Vince McMahon. Dixie Carter wanting to prove herself to her father. Tony Khan. Like, it's an ongoing theme. It just seems like just very, I don't know, bro, just very insecure and delicate human beings for some reason get involved in the wrong business, bro. Like seriously, like if that is what you're setting out to prove, I don't think the wrestling business is the place to prove it, bro.
Yeah, but on the other side, though, there's an element of all of us that wants to prove ourselves to our fathers. We want that attaboy or an attagirl, you know, and that just there's very few feelings than to get that nod of approval from your father. And,
you know, bro, I got to be honest with you, Chris. I'm not one of those people.
You're a rare breed, Vince.
Yeah,
I mean, you really are.
I got a great relationship with my dad. He was just here for a couple of weeks. He's 93 years old. God bless him. I've never, ever had those feelings. I don't even, bro. What since day one in the wrestling business,
has he always been there for you?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely, 1,000%.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, since day one in the wrestling business, bro, nobody in my family, I'm talking about parents, wife, children, nobody in my family knew what I went through going in the wrestling business. I did not tell them anything about the business, bro, and what I was going through. Nothing.
Did you ever feel like you had to prove anything to Vince?
No.
Never.
Nope, never. No,
Interesting.
I'm just being honest, bro. My whole thing was, honestly, Chris, I was getting paid to do a job, and I just wanted to do the best job I possibly could. Honestly, I mean, that's maybe something's wrong with me, but that's it.
No, I wouldn't say. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's a completely different dynamic when your father's there. I mean, like he was giving you the presence, the emotional presence that you needed as a child. That's a whole different dynamic than
Not really though, bro. My father, bro, was old school Italian. I think my father was like one of 13 kids. Bro, my father to this day cannot show any type of emotion. He's just not that way. He just never, it's not like that, bro. And I don't know, Chris. I never needed that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know, bro. Like I said, maybe it's me. Maybe it's just weird. But my father was not a very emotional kind of guy, and I did not need that type of emotion from him.
Do you have a sense of emotion toward other people? Like, do you have a sense of empathy or sympathy toward other people typically?
Oh no? God, yeah, bro. I'm watching this. I'm watching this documentary, and I mean, if anybody's heart wasn't breaking for Shane, I mean, you talk about a guy that has spent his entire life, and it's still not good enough, bro. And it is clear as day. Oh my God, that breaks my heart. Yes.
So when you say you had a great relationship with your father growing up, what does that mean? What does that look like?
He was, he was just, I mean, he was just a great dad, I mean, bro, Chris, my father, I swear to you, bro, nobody ever sat me down and had a talk with me about the birds and the bees. Did they have one with you?
No, I had one with my kids, that's for sure.
Okay, that never, like, all like everything in my life, bro, I kind of figured out on my own. You know what I mean? But, my family had my mother and father had a solid marriage. They were always together. There was no fighting and screaming and arguing. It was a very normal, traditional family. So I never had to deal with any of that trauma whatsoever. That's but, great. Yeah.
Was your father emotional towards your mother?
Mm-mm.
No feeling, no emotion, no. You never saw him hug or kiss or anything.
He just wasn't that guy, bro. You know what my father cared about?
What's that?
Playing softball, bro. That's it.
There you go.
He cared about going to work. When work's done, I'm going to play softball. I swear to God, to this day, bro.
Is that a reason why you're a big baseball fan now?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You see how, it's interesting, Vince. It seems that's how kids pick up stuff from their parents, especially their fathers, and it's like we have a tendency of picking up those things that we observe. I mean, that's how we learn. What is called schemas, and so. When you didn't have to feel like you had to prove anything to your father if he was there, okay, yeah, he wasn't there emotionally. It's good for fathers to be there emotionally, but what you saw from the observation of your parents was stability. You saw stability, and that's really good to see. And it wasn't
what I also saw, Chris, this is what I probably took the most from my dad, and it has probably been the most important trait of my life, my entire life. I saw what a hard worker he was. And that literally has been my trademark to this day. No doubt that rubbed onto me.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, kids are prone to pick stuff up like that. From, they are sponges, to their parents, especially their fathers. And if they don't see that type of dynamic with their father, I mean, of course, Shane and Vince saw the hardworking, tendencies of Vince. But at the same time, once you make the business so much of your child, that your children, you put your children through the ringer. And Shane has talked about in many interviews that he would, he started off as a ref. He wasn't even Shane McMahon. He was Shane something. I forgot. Shane, I forgot what his name, back in the 90s, like 90, 91, when he was like a ring boy and a ref and stuff like that. And so he wasn't even called a McMahon, coming into it, because Vince really wanted to take Shane through the ringer, to kind of prove himself to him in the business. And so it just seems like Shane has been going through that, just through that process. But that's a reflection of Vince having to prove himself to Vince Sr. So that generational type of lineage of proving yourself to Vince, has been there, with his kids, and he was there with his father. And you can tell that he was a father figure towards some. I mean, you've even said he was a father figure toward you. Mm-hmm. And so he's had that ability to have that power dynamic of being a father figure toward people. But Vince's view of a father figure is, you got to prove yourself to me. You got to prove yourself to me. Why? Because that's what his father did to him. Right. So therefore, Vince is going to have that same type of framework to everybody who he's either a father or a father figure to, which is the reason why everybody looks for that nod when they come back from the ring. And Vince has that much power, and the ability to have that much power. But the problem is, there's still a lot of emotional healing that needs to come as far as managing that power. And once you don't have that emotional healing, it starts to get very, very addictive, and it starts to make you swell. And that's when, I always tell people, man, 3 of the biggest, things that people deal with when they reach some type of leverage or power or dynamic of control is money, power, and sex, man. And those 3 factors we have seen throughout the legacy of Vince McMahon. So
yeah.